you want to have the attention on you, she's gonna wanna pull back. Feet are in position, legs are flexed, stomach isn't, chest is up, smile. Let me get some water.
It's game time and I'm up one. Name something I ain't done. Name a body that's my type. Air Jordan, I'll take flight. I'm next level, I'm franchise.
To our winner, Julia Rene.
Welcome back, guys, to another video. In today's video, we are going to be going over NPC wellness posing. So I'm not gonna do very much about explaining posing for the IFBB versus like the NPC, because the majority of people that are watching this need to know the basics of the NPC before you go into the IFBB. So with the NPC, first, the way we're gonna structure this video is basically going over quarter turns, walking, transitions, and then like creating your own posing routine. So before I get into that, I also wanted to announce that my 90-day shred program is the first link down in the description. So if you guys want to grab it and join me, because by the time this video gets posted, I feel like we're only gonna have about a week left to join. So I just wanted to let you know. So first of all, the difference between the NPC and the IFBB are, I guess, kind of important in the sense of like what you do. The posings are relatively the same. So when you're doing your quarter turns, front, side, going back to the front, you still do those when you're professional and you're in the IFBB. The only like main differences that I have found is just the length in which you get a routine. So for an amateur in NPC, you get about 12 to 15 seconds for your routine. So that's not really much time. So for example, when I did my first amateur routine, I literally would walk in, I just walked in, I hit my front pose, I transitioned to the back pose, and then I turned around to the front pose. And the reason being is because I knew that my strengths were my front pose and my back pose. And bodybuilding is very much about highlighting the aspects of your body that look the best and honestly hiding the ones that you need work on. So for me, I still need work on my side glutes. So when I am doing my posing routine, I showcase more of my quads and my glutes because I know that I want to put my best foot forward and show the best physique that I can for the judges. So we're gonna go over first, I feel like we should go over first walking because that's so important, and I feel like people definitely forget about it because you get so caught up in like what poses to do and how your body should look and where you should be flexing and sucking in that you forget about walking. Because when you walk onto the stage, that is the first thing that the judges are gonna see. They're gonna see how confident you are when you're walking on stage. So if you're not used to walking in heels and you're walking on stage and you're like, or you're like tripping and you're a little uncomfortable, it's very noticeable. You don't look as confident. You don't look like you've been practicing enough. So let's start with the walk. So first of all, if you're not somebody who wears heels, I thank my mom every day because I've been wearing heels since I was little, so I know how to walk in heels. I used to work at a salon, so I would wear heels every day. But if that's not the case for you, wearing them as much as you can. Bring them to the gym when you're practicing your posing routine. Have them in your gym bag so that you can wear them. I always recommend too that try not to do it with socks on. So I know that the shoes are uncomfortable and this and that, but you're gonna get used to the cushiness of the socks being on your feet. And you kind of slide more when you have socks versus the grip from your skin. So you'll see me sometimes where I have socks on and where I don't have socks on. That's because I was, I guess, just being more lazy, but I always try to take my socks off, take my shoes off, put my posing heels on so that we can walk. Another tip that you can do is when you're at home and you're just like making food or you're in the kitchen, walk around in your heels so that you start getting used to them. The more that you wear them, the better you're gonna look, and you're not gonna look like when you walk on stage. So when I start posing, one of the things that I do just to kind of like get in the mood for my walk and to bring that like feminine energy out of me, it's because for me, I realized that with bodybuilding, it's a very masculine sport. Like we're lifting and we're grinding. And then when we pose, we have to be more feminine. And it's a little bit hard to switch between the two personalities, if you will. So I usually just start with walking in circles. So I'll put my playlist on. I'll also link down below my posing playlist because that's really like essential to timing and getting like in the mood for posing. If you're just not posing to anything, then it's gonna be hard to really like want to dance with it basically. So I'll have that link down below. But one of the first things that I do is literally, I'll just keep my feet about parallel and parallel. And then I just do this kind of moment. I'm swaying back and forth and it seems ridiculous and all I'm doing is bringing my foot in, bringing my foot in. You see how my hip is coming up with it, and I'm crossing my hands, because then when we start walking, then it's a little bit easier. So that helps me know, okay, where are my hips moving? Because I want my hips to move when I walk, because I'm just gonna look like very, very stiff. This looks stiff. But if I add my hips in with it and bring it up when I walk, so bringing up this hip, then it looks a lot more model-esque. So going back to that little movement, just literally, I'll start off by switching back and forth before I start my walk. I'm not even like focused on what my posing's looking on right now. I'm just focusing on like getting to the energy of what we're doing. And then once I do that, little heel click, see, boom, leg goes down, crossing them in front of the other. I'm gonna just do it really slow so you can see what I'm doing first. Crossing one foot in front of the other, boom, boom. Hands are going opposite hand, opposite leg, because if we didn't, then we'd be walking like this. And we don't wanna walk like that. So, a little bit of cues for the walk. Having your first initial step out, stepping out, clicking the heel, boom. You don't need to take giant steps, because if you're taking too big of steps, you're gonna be like looking like you're going like this. So you really don't need to take that long of steps. Not that I can anyways, because my legs are small. So I start, walk, hip comes up, hip comes up. See how my hips are going up with it? And then I'm gonna turn just so that I could get the flow down. And then I just do that a couple of circles so that we get what it feels like to walk and turn, because when you're posing, you're gonna be posing and you're gonna have to transition so that it looks comfortable. So those are my biggest tips for walking, I would say, going over them really quick. Crossing your legs over, 1. Bringing that hip up that crosses over first. So if I'm crossing my right leg over, this hip is coming up, boom. Boom. This looks dramatic and it doesn't look cute right now, but these cues can help you end up walking a little bit more model-esque later. Okay, one thing to remember when you're walking, it's just important as posing. So you want things to be tight, you want to be flexing, you want to almost imagine like from the side, there is a string from the top of my glute to the ceiling, and it's pulling my glutes up. So you see how I have even a slight lift and slight arch in my lower back instead of just like this. Because I want to look good in all aspects of my posing, my walk and my presentation. So a little bit of a pelvic tilt up, string connected from the top of my glute to the ceiling that's like pulling it up, chest up high, don't go like this, don't be like this, some people go like this. But chest is high, head is up, you're confident, because if your head's down, then you're gonna be like this. So, from the side, glute, tilt, chest up, head up, then we're walking. Okay, now we're gonna go into the quarter turns for the wellness division. So, quarter turns are basically, you're moving like a clock. So you're going to start with your front pose, you're gonna move to the side, back, side, and front. When you come out for your first amateur show, or if you're still an amateur, you're going to be judged by all the other girls that are in your height class. So what's gonna happen is all of you are gonna come from backstage, and you're gonna come and you're gonna hit an X in the front. You guys are all gonna come out, line up with girls that are your height, and you're gonna start with the first front pose. The judges are gonna direct you and say quarter turn to your right, so you move clockwise to your right. So that's when you transition to your side pose. They'll say quarter turn to your right or face the back. Then we go into our back pose. They'll say quarter turn to the right. We transition into our side pose. Then they say face the front again, and you go back to your front pose. They might have you do that a couple of times because what they're doing here is they're judging you next to the girls, that are next to you. So they might be moving you around. They might say like say you have the number 10 on you, they might say number 10, number 11 switch. So be aware of what number you have on your suit because you don't want to be like hitting your front pose and they're like number 10, 11 switch and you're like, oh shit, that's me. And then you move. So be very aware of what number you have. So they might have you run through it a couple of times. So you're going to be going in this clockwise circle maybe 1 or 2 times. And then when you come out and do your individual routine, you're going to come from the back of the stage. Amateurs, they don't want you to do the T-walk. So pros, what you'll see them do is they'll come out to the back, they hit their pose here, then they walk to the X at the front so that they can see the judges, and then they're right here. Do not do that if you're an amateur. They want you to go straight to the front. So you're coming from backstage. This is when you get to do majority of your walking, smiling, looking at the judges, hit your first pose, and you do the rest of your routine. But we'll go about that later. So now, what we want to do is let's work on the quarter turns and the poses. So first, let's start with the front pose. So with the front pose, you could choose either your right leg or your left leg forward. Whichever one you want to be forward is up to you. What I recommend is you get your feet in the correct placement on each side. So you'll have test it out with your left foot forward and your right leg back and kind of see what that looks like. Maybe even ask somebody for their opinion. Ask them like, do I look comfortable here? Most likely you don't yet. Does it look better here or do I look better here? For me, I don't look as good here as I do here. So I know, okay, I want my left foot forward. So from now on, we're just gonna be working through our poses with my left leg forward. So when you're doing your poses, you wanna start feet up. So you wanna do like a mental checklist of what you're doing from the feet all the way to the top. So feet are in position, legs are flexed, stomach isn't, chest is up, smile. That's why when you're on stage, you see a lot of men's bodybuilding and women. So when they step up, you see them placing their feet, flexing their legs, then their hands and smile come. But that all happens in like a second because they're going through the checklist of everything that they need. So with our left leg forward, our back right leg is where the majority of the weight's going to go. This foot is going to be at about a 45-degree angle this way. And then the leg that we choose to be in the front is going to be right in front of it. So now this is what it looks like from the side. So we have that 45-degree angle in the back leg. Our front leg is placed on the ball of our foot and our heel is up. So we're literally just using this front leg for stability. This back leg is where the majority of the weight's going to go. Now, whichever leg you choose for the back, that's the hip that you're going to push back. So I want you to see this little rocking motion that I do. So I'm rocking forward and sitting back into it. So as if my hip is being pushed to the wall that's behind me. So once again, I'm here, we're pushing back into it. Also, you see how much smaller my waist looks versus being here, because I'm tilting my hip back and my stomach is at a 45-degree angle along with this foot. So keep in mind, where my foot's angling is where I want my stomach. So my stomach's gonna be here, boom, suck in, feet are where they need to go, push through your knees out, see you're flexing your legs. You're gonna see more of a, kind of like a bulbous thing here because your quad is turned at that 45-degree angle. My quad doesn't look as big dead on like this. But if I turn it out and sit back, you can see my quad popping out from the side. And then we have this one right here. So now our feet and our quads are flexed where they need to go. We have our hip back. Stomach is facing at that 45-degree angle. And now what do we do with our hands? So the hand that's on the hip side, where your hip is pushing back, this is where your hand should be. Here, other hand open towards the judges. So it's gonna feel really uncomfortable because your lower body's doing one thing, but your upper body needs to move to face the judges. Because if we were to look at that, we'd be like this, and we can't see the judges. So we have to keep our stomach facing this way, turning and facing the judges. So you wanna turn your upper body towards them. Feet, check. Knees, quads pushed out, check. That hip is back, stomach is at a 45-degree angle aligned with that back right foot, and then hands. So I want you to see what I'm doing with my hands. So the hand that goes on the back foot is gonna be on your hip, but really it's gonna be a little bit under your bra. So there's two things that I personally like for people with their backhand, like what to do with it. Because I call them pretty hands, because you don't want your hands to be like, or like that, like it's not cute. So putting your thumb in the back and either doing a fist with the front of your hand or thumb in the back, because you're literally using it for stability so you can keep your hand there, and then fingers. But when you have your fingers here, you want your fingers to be close together. You don't want them to be like this, you want them to be like this. This gives you a chance to actually show off your little manicure that you spent so much money on for your show day. But it's totally up to you. I personally do this one. And then the front left arm. This is the one that's the same, that's aligned with the foot that's in the front. You always want to think about, I want to be open to the judges. I don't want to be closed off. This is opening me up to the judges. So this hand, excuse me, a lot of people will try to like flare their lat here or go like this here. We don't want teacup hands. We really just want to gently place it right by the side. So this is what we don't want to see. We don't need to flare the lat, because with the wellness division, we want to have a lower body that's more dominant than the upper body. So we're not trying to make this look bigger. So gently place it. You don't need to flick it up. One thing that I do here, just so I have something to do with my fingers, is I literally I touch my thumb to my pointer finger like this, and then I keep these fingers just gently like that. So this is what it looks like. See, I'm not flaring, it's just dangling right by my side, right by my glute. Now that's the front pose. So, going over cues for that. Whichever leg is the back foot, remember it's at a 45-degree angle. Whichever leg you choose for your front, it's ball of your foot, majority of the weight is on that back leg, and this is for stability. Sitting that right hip back so it pushes to the wall behind you. Suck in through your stomach. Belly button faces at a 45-degree angle along with that back right leg. Open up, face the judges. Smile, you're on stage. Okay, now that we've done our front pose, when you're doing your quarter turns with the judges, they're gonna say quarter turn to the right. So we're gonna do our side pose. So this is our first side pose that's to our right. So this leg, that's the closest to the judges or the camera that you're watching me from, this is what the majority of the weight's gonna go on. So again, we're starting from our feet up. This back leg is gonna get placed right here. So it's a little bit in front of it, and you see, just like in the front pose, this is on the ball of my foot and my heel is up. So now we have our feet where they need to be. The purpose of this pose is to show off your side glute. So how do we make it look bigger and basically make it look bigger in comparison to our waist? That is the purpose that we want to do here. So I want you to sit into this glute that's the closest to where you're seeing me, kind of sit into it like this, and then imagine that there's a string pulling your glute out so that you turn it and face the judges. So see how much bigger my glute looks here versus here? Just that little movement. Boom, boom. Can't see it that much, can see it a lot better. Okay. Can I get some AC in here? Okay, so our feet are where they need to be, sitting into that hip that's the closest to where you're seeing me right now, pulling this glute towards you. Okay, now this is another situation to where your stomach is like facing this way, but we need to get our upper body this way. So I'm gonna look at myself really quick so I can see. Pulling the glute, sitting into it, turning, facing the judges. What happens with your hands here, a lot of people wanna flare their lat also, because what you're trying not to do is have your hand cover your glute. So you don't want it to be here, you want it to be just above that. And then same thing goes with the hand on the hip that's in the back. You can either do the thumb and the fist or the thumb and the fingers, whichever one that you prefer. And you're pulling that glute towards me or towards the camera, and then shifting your upper body a little bit over so that you can see the judges. So that's the side pose to the right. So now we got to do the back pose. So we've done front, quarter turn to the right, side pose, face the back. Now we're in our back pose. I'm going to show you what this looks like from the back and from the side so that you can see how much I'm arching. So from the back, we want our feet a little bit wider than hip distance with our toes slightly pointed out. So we got our feet where we needed to be. So now I want you to imagine that the same motion that you do when you do an RDL. You know how you're supposed to push your glute to the wall behind you when you do an RDL? That's what I want you to do with your glute. So feet wider than hip distance, pushing your glutes towards the judges, hands go right on the top of your thigh, arch in your back, but then you bring your torso back up. So from the side, this is what it looks like. We got our feet where they need to be. See, I'm doing that little push. Hands are going right at the top of my thighs. See how I'm not going like this? My elbows aren't like this. I'm keeping my elbows in tight and they're right. Just gently placed on my thighs. It might be a little bit lower or higher depending how short your arms are. Mine are short, so I just keep them right here. So now, with the arch, push glutes back, hands right here. One thing that I do too to help me bring my torso back up, because your torso cannot be leaned over like this, it needs to be back up straight. I actually use my hands and I'll push into my thighs to help me like stand back up. Like that. Boop, boop. Okay, so some things that you don't want to see here, like I was saying before, you don't want to be leaning over like this because the judges don't want to see your booty hole. They just want to see the separation between your glutes and your hamstrings and all of that. So pushing back, standing back up straight with my torso. So from the side, I look like a pretzel because there's a lot of pressure in my low back and I'm really arching. But from the back, it looks like I'm just standing back up straight. You can't really tell from the back like how much I'm really arching when I do it. Another thing is you don't need to squeeze your glutes here. Really just push back, let your glutes show. If you're lean enough, they'll definitely show. I made the mistake on my second national show of like squeezing my glutes because I was like, if I squeeze them and flex them, it'll look better, and it looked way worse. So it's like the Nacho Libre with the like that. That's what I always think about. So that's our back pose. So now that we've gone from the back pose, we need to get to our next side pose. So then they'll say quarter turn to the right, and we go to the right again to our side pose. Same, but different on this side. It's literally this, everything's the same, you just switch your arms and your leg. So again, this foot, I forgot to mention also, your feet should both be facing this way. So we're sitting on this hip, we have this back leg, toe is down on the floor, majority of the weight is on this leg right here, sitting, pulling, open up, judges. Remember, pretty hands, and this one we don't need to flare, we just need to gently set it, right hovering above our glute. There's probably going to be one side pose that's easier to get into than the other, and that's just like the amount of hip mobility that you have. Because for me, this side is harder. But this side, I don't know why, I can sit into it more, I just can't. So there might be one that's a little bit harder. One thing that I just make sure that I know, when I get to that pose that's a little bit harder, I have to try extra hard to really sit and pull that glute around, because I know that she's gonna wanna pull back. And then they're gonna say face the front again, and then we just go back into our front pose. So those are the quarter turns. Let me get some water. So now we know all of the poses. This is important to know. Now we know how to walk, now we know the poses, because now we can start curating the transitions and we can make a routine. So first we'll work on transitions. What are transitions? Transitions are getting from point A to point B without looking like a robot, basically. So how would I transition from this pose to this pose without looking like a robot? Because when you're on stage and they're directing you to do the poses, you don't want to be like, because it doesn't look as cute. So there's ways that we can move our feet, we can pivot, we can move our hair, maybe do some sort of like sway to go into each pose so that they look fluid with each other. So one of the easiest ways to transition from your front pose to your side pose is literally just moving the back foot weight to the front foot. So I'm going from here, they say quarter turn to your right. I'm moving the weight to the front foot, turning it over. This hand is coming right here. I'm showing a little bit of the glute, and you see how this foot is already where it needs to be for the side pose. And then all I do is bring that over to the side pose. So again, they say quarter turn to your right, transitioning the weight from my back leg to my front, and I'm pivoting this foot over so it faces that way, and I'm pushing my glute out, putting this hand right on the top of my thigh, sliding the back right leg over so that I can open up and go to my side pose. That's the simplest way to do it. I teach all my clients to do it that way unless they have the other foot forward, their right foot forward, then they have to kind of go a step forward and then go to their side pose, because their back leg needs to be here for that side pose so that it can look like that. So for the other leg, that transition would basically be stepping forward with that back leg, boom, which actually is really, really cute, and I like too because it's a little bit more dramatic. So you're going from here to boom, stepping over, sliding the foot, side pose. For me, the less amount of movements that you can do when you're doing your transitions, the better. Because whenever you're on stage, whose body are they gonna look at first? The person that gets into the pose the quickest. So there's a balance between like doing it fast, but also doing it efficiently. So if you're doing like too many things before you get into your side pose, the girl next to you is already in it and they're already looking at her first. So you want to have the attention on you. So now we've done the transition from here, pivoting to the side pose. So now how would we get from this side pose to this back pose? So the easiest way that I have found is literally to move this back leg, stepping it back, then we're in our back pose. So now that doesn't look so cute. So how can we make it look a little bit better? We can go from here, stepping that back foot, swaying into this right hip, boom, swaying into the left foot, boom, flip the hair over the back, hands come down, back pose. So that's way cuter than just I also make it look ugly with my faces. Okay, so again with that transition, feet where we want to be, stepping this back leg. This is the first leg we're gonna sway our hips into. Sway your hips into the right, left hand goes behind, you do this little salsa movement, sway into the left leg, left hand goes behind, or right hand goes behind because my left. So you wanna think of like opposite hand, opposite leg, boom, boom, boom. Again, for me, when I pose, it's like I have to do repetition, repetition, repetition. Like if I mess it up, I just do it again till I get the movement. Here, stepping that foot back, swaying, boom. Swaying, gently, toss the hair, hands come down, back pose. So now we've transitioned from the side to the back pose. So now, how can we transition from this back pose to this side pose? So there's a couple things you can do. The easiest way to do it, I think, is personally to go from the back pose. You're gonna slide this right foot out, in, step back, adjust to the side pose. There's a more challenging one that I usually do, and I call it the bring it around town. And you go from the back pose, bring your glutes around, slide the leg in, step back with that foot, readjust, side pose. So let's start with the easier one first. I definitely recommend starting with the easier one first because that slide in with the foot can be used for so many other things too. So slowing it down, we have our feet where they need to be for the back pose. See, I'm gonna lift my right foot. I'm gonna turn that foot or the heel out, slide it in. And when I'm sliding it in, My feet are basically right next to each other. I'm not sliding it and pushing it here. I'm not bringing it forward. I am sliding it out, in. Again, heel out, sliding it in, stepping back with that same foot. See how this makes my glutes look cute? And this foot is basically in the position that it needs to be for the side pose. All I gotta do is adjust it, bring this leg forward, side pose. Simple enough, right? Probably not, because I remember when I first learned all these, they were so difficult. Okay, so one last time, let's do it just fast, what it would look like. Here, they say quarter turn to the right. Oh, I was gonna do the complicated one, never mind. Boom, slide the leg in, push back, adjust, side pose. Okay, so now how do we get from this side pose back to our front pose? It'll be different for each person because it determines whether you have your front or your front left leg or your right leg forward. So if you have your left leg forward, we're gonna go from here, and all I do is bring this back foot kind of over like this, boom, adjust to my front pose. It's just as simple as I can get so that I'm just in the pose already. So if you have your right leg forward, it's actually kind of easier because all you need to do is pivot the feet. See, my right leg's already forward. Boom. From here, pivot the feet, switch your hands. Switch your hands. Sorry, I never do that side, so I don't even know how to freaking do it. Left foot forward, bringing that left foot, pivoting to the front. If you have your right leg forward for the front pose, we're right here. Just pivot of the feet, switch them. You might even need to step this one back a little bit. Actually, this pose don't look half bad on me. Nah. Okay, so those are transitions. I wonder if you can see the sweat dripping down my face. So now that we know our quarter turns, mandatories, and how to get from each pose, now we can start creating our routine. So one thing that I did to figure out, like, where do I look best? Honestly, asking another friend, if you have a bodybuilding coach, ask your bodybuilding coach. When I do posing clients, they usually ask me my recommendation. I'm like, girl, you look good here. So then you can start creating your routine based on that. So for me, I knew that I had a good front pose and I had a new back pose when I was an amateur. So I wanted to showcase just that. You get to choose what poses you do in your routine. When you do your routine, you don't have to do all the poses. First of all, you're not gonna have time for that. Usually they only give you about 12 to 15 seconds. So this is basically what an amateur routine can look like. You're gonna be behind the stage, they're gonna call out your number, and then you're going to go directly to the front. There usually is an X in the front where you're supposed to stand so that you can be right in front of the judges. Again, don't go to the back to do the T-walk. So they're gonna call your name. When you're standing on that edge, you need to be already like the judge, because the judges could see you. So you don't wanna just stand there like this. You wanna be ready to go, smiling, ready to go, so when they call your number out. So my routine as an amateur was literally just this. So I come to the front, 1, 2, 3, front pose, transition, back pose, and then slide forward, step forward, front pose, switched my hands so that I can sign off, and sign off. That was it. It was about 12 to 15 seconds, so really cultivating a routine that fits towards your body and where your strengths are is going to be essential. This is where you can add more hair flips and stuff, you know, with the back pose, or with when you turn around, flipping your hair, or when you're right here, making it your own. So that's gonna be it, at least for the posing, guys. I'm exhausted. If you have any questions, comment down below. If you need posing sessions, there will be a link down below as well. Also, make sure you sign up for the shred, and love you all so much, and you're more powerful than you think. Bye.